Hello, everybody, and welcome to Katie Couric, or as I like to call it under my breath in the control room, Tony Masillas. This is a special episode because we are actually celebrating our 1-year anniversary, if you can believe it. This is actually the 52nd episode of the show.
Woo!
Katie Couric is not the host today. She is the guest, and she will be answering your questions. Yes, you, ex-limo man, Mad Dog Martha, DB Diva, Tucsoner native, all of you are the hosts. And we also have some questions and some tweets from celebrities as well, and we'll get to those.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Hi,
so,
Tony.
Hello,
nice
Katie.
Nice to see you. By the way, I just want to mention, somebody tweeted me and asked, since I wore these, I guess, for our flip-flops for our first Facebook chat. He said, could you just celebrate your 1 year by wearing flip-flops again? These are actually not mine. They're my friend Kim's, and they're a little big for me, but it is Susan G. Komen Wear Pink Day, so I thought this was a little nod
a little touch of pink.
Yeah, for breast
Perhaps
cancer
not
research.
A touch of class, but that's
there you
good.
go.
Yeah.
Come on, I think they look okay.
No, I think they're lovely.
Right.
You've done flip-flops, Uggs. There have been quite a few different.
Well, you know, one of the nice things about doing this web show, it is more relaxed. I think the web in and of itself lends itself to a more casual setting, more casual interaction. So this is just part of that. So
it does. And actually, over the course of this past year, you've gotten a lot more into social media. You've been tweeting a lot. And a tweet today actually made page 6.
Well, I don't know if it's going to make page 6. They called because they were interested, because I tweeted that I had gone to a Chinese restaurant and I had egg drop soup, garlic shrimp. But actually, before I was even served, there was a cockroach probably about that big walking across the banquette. So I don't know why. I've never been super grossed out by cockroaches. A lot of people are. Rats, of course, yes. Mm-hmm. Mice, probably. But cockroaches, I think they're gross, but they don't completely skeeve me.
Did you say, waiter, what is this cockroach doing in my soup?
Yeah,
Did you say the backstroke?
No, but I said, excuse me. You're not supposed to be funnier than I am, by the way. I said, excuse me, to the waiter. There is a cockroach walking across the banquette. Right. So he very matter-of-factly and calmly took a napkin and just smushed it, grabbed it, and walked away. Now, you would think we'd get a little something on the bill, right?
Nothing? Not even free pineapple wedges?
No, nothing.
Oh, no, wow.
But anyway, it was sort of, my friend was more grossed out. And he said that if that had happened with his wife, she would have been out the door and calling the health inspectors. So, I don't know, I just wasn't that fazed by it.
I probably wouldn't be eating there again, but then
it's
again,
a really good Chinese
restaurant.
Is
just a bug, right?
You know, and I think that they're probably, I mean, what we don't know about New York restaurants, it's a good thing we don't know it, right?
Yeah,
because I'm sure
about
there's
restaurants
a lot of,
in general,
there's
I'm
a lot of
sure.
stuff that goes on, not to mention, you know, the employees who do all sorts of weird things to the food. If they don't like you, don't they spit on the chicken. I remember once at the Today Show, we had a funny story about a guy who was urinating in the office coffee pot. And after the story ran, I said, well, that's what you call a good cup of joe. But anyway, moving right along, Tony.
Okay, yeah, so moving on to your... Right. Oh, you know, before we go any further, I do have to say that for this entire year, the show has been brought to you by the letters D, O, V, and E.
That's right.
So very special thanks to Dove for being our sponsor.
As they said to Katy Perry on Saturday Night Live, by the number 38 and the letters double D.
Double D, exactly. That was actually it was a good episode of SNL.
That was a funny skit, I thought, with Katy Perry.
Nice way to get the season started. Okay, now time to move on to your questions.
Sorry.
I want to start with Stefan Kuzovsky from Facebook, who has written to us a couple of times,
yeah, I think I know him. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. Oh, no, I know Ed. Ed Kaczynski, I think, is another one.
Oh, yeah, not the same guy.
Sorry.
But Stefan has written to us a few times as well, and his question is, you know, obviously we've had 52 episodes. Who was your most memorable guest and why?
Well, you know, all of them have been memorable, from Justin Bieber to Glenn Beck to Hugh Jackman. I have to say, probably my favorite guest, with all due respect to everybody who's been nice enough to come on the show, is Hugh Jackman. Only because, Tony, you know, he is such a nice person. He's so generous. He's so relaxed. You know, when you're doing interviews, some people really give you a lot and give of themselves, and they understand what goes into making a good interview. And I always feel like Hugh always really comes to play. Mm-hmm. And he's just such an engaging guy with such a wonderful personality, and he's very philanthropic. He does a lot of charity work, and, you know, we spent a lot of time talking about his kids when he was getting ready to go on the show, and I've just gotten to know him a little bit through the years. So I just always love seeing seeing him, and I always loved talking with him. Chelsea Handler was really fun too, by the
She
way,
was
because
great. She
she's
was a
so
lot of
off the
fun.
wall. But she was a lot of fun too, and I ended up inviting her to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which
That's
was
right.
I had my guests were Chelsea Handler, Betty White, and Morgan Freeman. That was quite a trifecta.
Seriously, yeah.
So, but I thought Justin Bieber was really fun because he was so sweet and very respectful. And didn't he keep calling me ma'am? And he did that weird head shake with his hair to show us, because I couldn't understand why he was doing that. Because usually people go like, or that to get it out of their face, but he was going
and kind of moving
to get it into
his
face. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm getting my hair. But he was just trying to make it do that thing.
You've actually just perfectly teed up. We have a little bit of, we call it a sizzle reel because it's smoking hot.
Oh yeah,
and,
I'm sure.
And it's
very
some
sizzling.
highlights of some of the best moments on the show for this past year. Why don't we take a look?
Let's, shall we?
We shall.
Does it take you a long time to write the books?
Well, I write at like a second or third grade reading level, so it's,
No, you don't.
It's a lot easier.
I would say 8th grade, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Everyone pretty much knows who Jane Lynch is. Am I right?
Yeah, it's really nice. It's affirming. I mean, I don't get the crazy paparazzi thing that a lot of the younger stars do, or even the younger kids on our show.
You do this thing with your hair all the time.
Yeah,
don't you,
it's
Justin?
kind of like.
What are you doing? You just want to make sure it's still like.
Look,
this is what you do.
If I do this,
yeah.
this is how it is. Fine.
Yeah.
I want to see you. I want to be able to look into your eyes.
You offered to throw in Sting, who you said would explain tantric sex. Now, I know you probably thought I would never bring this up, Sting. We're going to Skype in this question, and I'm wondering if this viewer is with us. Hello, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Katie.
Oh, look! Oh my gosh! Do you say tweeted or twittered?
It's tweeted.
Elmo, do you tweet?
I'm a tweet.
Really? Ladies and gentlemen, Hugh Jackman. Here's your life in something like 40 seconds. You said he had a deep-seated hatred for the white culture. What is that? What is the white culture?
Gosh, I'm so tempted to help make news here today.
Well, in the book you write, first-generation photovoltaic cells require the transformation of silicone into one or two forms, either single crystal, polysilicone, or amorphous silicone. Huh? Remember, you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @KatieCouric. You can see all the episodes of this web show anytime at cbsnews.com.
So there you go. Just sort of a quick look.
Yeah, aging before my eyes, by the way, but that's okay. No, it reminds me of other people. Of course, I love Jane Lynch. I mean, one of the great things about this web show, for me personally, is they're all people I'm really interested in, that I'm curious about, topics I want to understand better, whether it's immigration or Haiti or what's going on in Afghanistan vis-a-vis women or the war effort. And so it really is very satisfying for me because it responds to what particular intellectual curiosity I may be having at any given time. So it's also so rich and diverse. You saw Jane Lynch, and we didn't have some of the more serious conversations, but we've had a number of serious shows talking about topical issues, whether it's why Capitol Hill, why Congress is so dysfunctional, or what's going on in Haiti, and so I try to be topical as well, but sometimes I say, I love Glee and I want to talk to Jane Lynch. And of course, we booked her many, many months in advance. And I felt like I feel proud that
ahead of the Lynch curve.
We're a little ahead of the curve, I think, on a lot of things, I hope, because we try to really have our antenna up in terms of what's going on in popular culture, what movies may be down the road. And one nice thing, too, is I may do an interview on one platform. Like I interviewed Vicki Kennedy at the 92nd Street Y, and we were able to show that. So I try to do things and repurpose them in a way that is helpful or interesting to people who may be checking out the show.
Definitely. There are a lot more questions in there.
Are you getting some live questions? Because that's very exciting.
I know, and we will take some of those.
These flip-flops look ridiculous, by the way, but that's all right. Okay.
You live and learn. This is a great question from Brad Tomlinson. Do you feel like you're reaching people on your web show that you wouldn't reach on the CBS Evening News?
Well, I'll tell the story that you brought a bunch of kids in from Columbia Journalism School, right. Tony? And I don't know if I should say this, but
I think it's fine.
But it was, I think there were 15 kids, right? And you asked them, and you recounted this story to me. Well, you tell the story.
Well, no, in a nutshell, basically what we did, I went to Columbia and I brought in a class of newer, younger journalism students to meet Katie, to hear a little bit about the evening
All
news.
probably in their early 20s.
They were all,
yeah.
for the most part, in their 20s, yeah. And we asked for a show of hands about how many of them watch the evening news or any 6:30 broadcast on a regular basis or watched it yesterday. Not one hand went up. And then I just asked on a whim, how many of you have seen a web show called Katie Couric? And out of about 12 or 14 people, 5 hands went up, which I guess is kind of a sign of the times. I don't know.
Can we say it was like 9 hands?
Yeah, it was like, it was unanimous. They'd all watched 51 episodes, and now they're watching live and submitting questions.
Amazing. But anyway, I think the media landscape is so fragmented, and basically this offers me a platform that I couldn't have on the evening news, clearly. First of all, I'm much more myself, right? And
yeah.
I can have longer conversations and interact with people and have, conversations that I really can on the evening news, because we have 22 minutes and we have to really get all the important stories of the day in there. So, I think this is certainly a different side of me that people see. So to me, it's just kind of adding to the plate of options for me as a journalist where I can go, but also for people who want to consume news and information and do it in a different way.
And I was going to say, it's a lot more interactive, but that being said, you actually instituted on the evening news bringing some viewer questions
Yeah,
in.
you know what, and I was thinking about that, Tony. We really have to bring that back. We did it really in a big way during the Gulf oil spill, and I every once in a while I'm like, we have to do more viewer questions. We have to, and there's certainly plenty of things to talk about on any given night where we can say, hey, you have to help me remember to do that, because we're doing so many things. We're doing so many things, but on a night where there's something controversial, on a night where there's a big news story that people may not understand, or even it's a second or third day of that story and they may be confused or need more information. I think we're really, I hope that we provided a useful service for people during the Gulf oil spill, because we got a lot of really great questions, and we can't cover every aspect of every story every day. And we knew that if we got a very similar questions, or we said, wow, that is a great question, we don't know the answer, we learned something while hopefully helping viewers learn something as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting to read through the questions, because sometimes you realize you're getting too much up in your own head on a story, and to see a question as simple as, is the food supply safe?
Right.
Which we might not have necessarily thought of instantly, but that's what people are really thinking about.
Right, and I don't think people understood, sort of the whole architecture of this well and how it was working and how they were doing the pipes underneath the sand and how far down it was, and, was there an unlimited amount of oil in the well, things like that it does bring you down back to earth. And it also makes you realize that, sometimes you can't operate up here when people haven't been following a story as closely as we have in the news business. You need to really kind of help them regroup and help them learn everything that's happened.
Yeah, and to understand why it's important and why we're using some of this precious real estate of 22 minutes to tell that story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Let's get back to some more questions. Jonathan Eves, what do you like more, the one-on-one interviews or when we do issue-oriented shows?
I like them both, I really do, because I care about a lot of issues. You mean in terms of celebrities or authors?
Yeah, I guess if you sit down with a big name versus...
I think sometimes it's hard, because even in a half hour to talk about one issue, sometimes I feel like, gosh, did we really answer the question? Do we understand more about militias? Do we understand more about immigration law? Do we understand more about Afghanistan? And I always think, it just shows that I think many of us are 5 miles wide and a quarter inch deep, and that sometimes it's difficult in television to do the deep dive, as they say now. And but I love learning more and about issues, and I like doing the others as well. I don't mean to make this a cop-out, but I think that's what keeps the show interesting, that we do both.
Yeah, and actually, sometimes when we approach the issue shows, we might, or sometimes, in all honesty, sometimes I might go into it thinking, is this really going to be 30 minutes of... And there's always that moment or something that really makes you sort of stop and start listening and pay attention to the show. For example, the Davis Guggenheim show. In and of itself, 30 minutes, it sounded like maybe too much until those teachers and having those two different perspectives and really hearing from real people about what it's like, I thought it was fascinating.
No, and so did I, and I think that, I'm very interested. I tutor a fifth grader here in New York, along with my daughter, Carrie, who's 14. She also tutors a fifth grader with me, and that's sort of a nice mother-daughter activity we do. And I'm very, very interested in education in this country. I do think we're at a tipping point and at a critical juncture, and I think people don't necessarily agree with everything in this documentary, Waiting for Superman, and I think there are a number of others that are coming out as well. But it just to start a discussion and to make public education, quote unquote, sexy again, to at least turn it into a hot button issue, because it's I think everybody agrees. And it was interesting when I asked those teachers. I think actually Davis posed the question to the teachers, are you happy with the status quo? And they all said in unison, and the principal as well, no.
Right.
So I think, I just hope people of good faith, representing all different points of view, can sit down and talk about it and come up with real solutions, because I think, this infighting is just not very productive, and we really are failing our nation's children, and we have to do something about it.
Actually, we have some questions from some of our nation's school children that I want to ask you. Yeah,
okay.
A group of fifth graders in Charlotte, North Carolina sent us some questions that I'll actually get to in a bit. I want to ask you a few more of the questions that we've gotten from Twitter and Facebook
Okay,
first.
are you getting any live ones?
I am.
I'll get to a live one, Tony?
I got a couple live ones over here. We'll get to those
okay.
too. Those are more issue oriented, I think, so we'll do those. But here's a question from NW Life. This was a tweet. What was your tipping point to become more involved in social media?
I don't think there was a specific epiphany or tipping point, a moment in time. I think it was just the slow, sure realization that, in some ways I'm working in a horse and buggy industry when everybody's starting to drive Model Ts. And I think that, there is this huge transformation, has been this huge transformation going on in the media world. And I think that there is going to be significant overlap of content, but I just wanted to, I give graduation speeches all the time, Tony, and I tell kids, stay in touch, learn new technology, understand what's going on in the world around you, because everything changes, and you don't want to be using a typewriter, when everybody else is using a computer. And so I just thought I should follow my own advice. If I don't want to totally be irrelevant or obsolete, I need to understand how people are consuming the news and try to use my experience and whatever I've done in this business or any kind of credibility I've established and use that as a logical extension of the work I do.
And you also learned a pretty valuable lesson about...
Don't tweet people back when they write me nasty things.
You've learned two very valuable lessons.
Actually, I haven't learned that yet.
Yeah, we got to stop that.
Why?
Well,
see, now you and I have a philosophical disagreement about that. Once in a while, when people, I never write anything back that I'd be embarrassed to have on the front page of the New York Times. But sometimes I feel like people are so rude and obnoxious, and I just feel like they deserve a little bit of a
candy, a little sugar coming their way.
A little hay. I said this weekend that I was cleaning out my apartment, and I think I could be on that show Hoarders, because I'm a piler. I put all these magazine in piles.
Yes, you are, now that I think about it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to read this article. Oh, that looks like a great article about X, Y, or Z. I've got a lot of New Yorkers piled up in stacks about that tall. And I said, this is crazy. I am going to be auditioning for Hoarders. So I cleaned up, and my niece, who's living with us now, who's great, I said, Laura, will you help me go through some of that stuff? Because you know what I do? Then I get I start looking at things and reading them, and then I never get anything done. I said, be brutal and just really be tough, and let's throw some stuff away. So I did that for about 3 hours on Sunday, and it felt great. And and I was having a baby shower on Sunday night, so I had to clean my apartment anyway because I had stuff everywhere. And this is a really boring story, but anyway, so
bring it home.
Okay, so I tweeted that I was cleaning up, that I felt good, that I had to get, because I get all these catalogs, Tony. I get like 2 or 3 of the same catalogs. I don't even want these
Harry
catalogs.
and David,
Why
IKEA.
do I get these catalogs? Well, I don't mind. No offense to, and I like Harry and David's, but I just get all these catalogs from. I don't even know how I get them. cuddle down? Like, well, I never ordered anything from these people. So I just was saying I want to get rid of a lot of these magazines. I also got an iPad subscription so I could read them on my iPad and these catalogs. And somebody said, oh, please, like you clean your own place. Give me a break. And I was like, dude. So I wrote him back. What do you think? I have a lobby?
You're like, no, actually, I
said,
don't. And neither does anyone else.
I said, what do you think? I have like a little tribe of elves that I commission? I mean, of course I do. Yes, I have some help sometimes, but this was something I was doing.
Well,
but it was just,
you're
now,
very busy too.
It was just sort of nasty. And I just thought, you know what? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So I'm going to tell him, actually, I am, and I do.
Okay, good for you. Well, we can
He
agree to
wrote me
disagree.
back, and it was actually a nice tweet back. So see, I developed a little friendship with him.
Okay. Ex-limo man, we're coming to get you.
No, he's really nice. Ex-limo man.
Ex-limo man is very nice, and he actually sent a question. What do you look for when you're choosing a guest?
Well, someone who there's some buzz about, generally, if I can, and sometimes purely someone who just really interests me. You know, maybe a documentary's coming out. For example, I did
Like
that
Davis.
documentary, Davis, but I also did Tapped.
Oh, right.
About
I'm not being
you
rude,
know,
by the way. I'm checking for live tweets. It's an
about
awkward setup.
plastic bottles and sort of plastics and our use of plastics, which I thought I had seen the documentary and I thought it was really interesting. And I think it had a hard time getting an audience because a lot of the sponsors, you know, of some television shows that it might have had a place on, you know, like Vitamin Water or any other kind of sponsor would not approve of that. But I thought it was just a really interesting topic. So I would say sometimes it's somebody, I mean, for me, it's like, how did Justin Bieber become such a big star? This was back in May. When did we interview Justin Bieber? A while ago, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, how did this happen? This kid is everywhere. And I was really curious to hear about his life story and how, you know, and I'm also very fascinated about how fame affects certain people or when they hit this moment. And so it really varies. And sometimes it's a topic that's in the news, and I think people need to understand this topic better. You know, if we were really ballsy, we would do something on healthcare reform and really, really explain it to people. Because I think 9 out of 10 Americans really don't understand all the stipulations that are part of healthcare reform. And I think sometimes they base their opinions on maybe not knowing the whole picture. And it's also vacillates so much. I know this weekend, I think we did a poll, or we cited a poll that said most Americans don't think healthcare reform has gone far enough. So, you know, I think sometimes, whether it's the administration or people in media, we have a responsibility to really explain things in a way that people can really understand and have opinions with portfolio rather than without.
Well, that's a good segue to get into some of the issue-oriented questions that are coming from people. And one
God.
of them is from a famous tweeter, Ariana Huffington, has a question for you, actually. She says, Katie, we hear a lot about hard times leading to Tea Party anger. What about Americans who redirect their anger into solutions?
Well, I think... Well, first of all, you know, I think it's interesting. I think the Tea Party is not a monolithic organization. First of all, it's not really an organization, it's a movement. And as long as there is, you know, I think anger in and of itself isn't a negative force necessarily. I think sometimes from anger and outrage, great things can be accomplished. So I kind of applaud people who are getting involved in politics and feel that they want their voices heard. And as President Clinton told me last week, you know, I think some tenets of the Tea Party, they're very legitimate. Fears about overspending, about the deficit, about maybe government being too big in certain cases, that they're people of good faith who have strong opinions about that. So as long as that is channeled into solutions and backing candidates that I think who have real solutions, I think it's a positive. It can be a positive force, but I also think there are a lot of people. I think there's a lot of social activism that's going on. We were talking about this website, Peas for Prosperity, about a woman who was in corporate law in Atlanta and started a whole company where she has homeless people bagging peas and giving them as gifts for good luck because she got laid off from her job. And I think you see examples of that all over the country, maybe individual acts of kindness or people getting involved in a charity or a movement or an organization. And I think Ariana talks about it in her book, Third World America, right? And talks about the fact that some people are trying to do something positive in the world. So I think bad economic times fuels great kindness and generosity on the parts of people. We see volunteerism and people reaching out to those who are less fortunate. And then you see the other side, I think, anger, which, as I said, I think can sometimes lead to positive results.
I want to get to a live tweet. Allie Delury tweets in, Katie, what made you get into journalism, and how has that drive changed throughout your career?
Well, I'm still sadly a little too driven for my own good, Allie. Hey, Allie. But I would say I got into journalism because I love to write. I like people, and I'm sort of insatiably curious. I also think that we have a real responsibility to shine a light in dark places, to expose wrongdoing, to also let people know, about situations or things that are taboo, whether it's domestic violence or dating violence or sexual harassment, any kind of corporate malfeasance. And I just think, that's one of our most important jobs. Somebody's got to uncover these things. And I think the state of journalism is sort of at risk nowadays because there's not a lot of money for investigative journalism. And I'm proud of the work that Armin's done, for example, on this show and their investigative correspondents at other news outlets. But it's really critical because, while there's a lot of distrust of institutions these days, and the media being one of those institutions, I think we're in a critical position to expose what's going on so the American people have an idea. Now, now it's become so polarized that everyone thinks everyone has an agenda. And sometimes it's just to bring to light things that people otherwise wouldn't know about. Mm-hmm. So I became a journalist because no 2 days are alike, and it's exciting. I get to interview presidents and people in decision-making positions, and I take it really seriously, and I think it's a huge responsibility.
Lara Spencer tweets to you. You've said in recent yes, that Lara Spencer, by the way. You've said in recent interviews that you would like to do Dancing with the Stars.
Oh my God! I was kind of kidding about that, but no, I love Lara, and she's great. And I think I was at some event. I think that Us Weekly thing, and I don't even know what the question was.
Yeah.
Did they ask me my fantasy or something? And I've said
Shoot
this before.
For the stars.
I've said this before. I was just kind of kidding around. But I think I like watching the show when I can. I don't watch it religiously. But
have you watched this season at all?
I watched on the computer. I watched Jennifer Grey because everybody was making such a fuss about her waltz.
She was good.
Yeah, I thought she was a great dancer in Dirty Dancing. Well, she let everybody
turn me
know.
Into a great waltzer, and then you've done something.
But she let everyone know that she wasn't really a dancer. I thought last season it was kind of unfair that really pretty girl, Nicole, from the Pussycat Dolls.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. She is a dancer, but she's amazing. But still, I thought it was just unfair. Because how can you have Nicole, isn't that her name?
Yeah, Nicole.
And Niecy Nash. I mean, that's unfair. But Niecy Nash was pretty damn good. I said damn.
Definitely. It's all right. It's the internet. It's the interweb. It's just a series of tubes, So I want to get to some of these questions from our fifth graders.
Oh, yeah.
At Eastover Elementary in Charlotte, and they're pretty good. Chandler Bartle asks, what do you do to help save the Earth?
That's an excellent question, Chandler. Well, I try to recycle when I can. I just did an event for the Fish and Wildlife, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation on Saturday night, which is all about conservation. And
that's kind of an interesting. How did you happen to end up at the National Fish and Wildlife?
I'm a great outdoors woman, Tony. You knew that, right? I go fly fishing all the time and whitewater rafting. And
you have a buck stand behind your house.
They asked me to do it. I have some friends who are involved in the foundation. But, I probably should do more, actually, Chandler, come to think of it. I try to unplug my appliances, and I try to buy, the proper light bulbs and all that. But
for a while there, you were on an electric car kick, I remember.
Well, I would love, I actually, I have a minivan. So my sister has 2 Priuses. My sister in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She's kind of crunchy, but she's great. And she and her husband each have a Prius. And I was thinking it's about time that I do that as well, that I buy a hybrid, because my minivan isn't as bad as an SUV, but it's kind of a bit of a gas guzzler.
There are a lot more hybrids on the market now than there used to be.
Yeah, you know, I'm not a big car person. I don't drive that much. And the reason why I got a minivan is because my parents are older and it's kind of easy for them to get in and out of it. And when my kids were little, I thought it was easy for me as a single mom to kind of get them situated. I always thought SUVs were kind of hard and clunky and difficult. But, you know, my next purchase is definitely going to be a hybrid. But Chandler, I appreciate the question, and I think it's great that you're aware of the importance of saving the planet. And I try to do a lot of pieces, as you know, on global warming. We had Al Gore as a guest, and I know there's been controversy about how big an issue global warming is, but I think it's a very serious problem in this country and around the world, for that matter. And so I try to bring attention to it when I can.
Let's do really quickly a couple more if we can. I know we're almost out of time.
Really?
But yeah, that's what they're telling me, but that's okay. All right. Aaron Addison, also one of our fifth graders, asks, what was your most embarrassing moment on television? I want to know this too.
What was my most embarrassing? Lauren's probably up there. Lauren, my assistant, has
need
been with
Lauren
me
to call down.
for a while, for a long time, and she probably knows embarrassing moments. Oh, I'll tell you. Okay, so Kevin O'Quan, who passed away, who's a very talented makeup artist, and he was such a nice person. He did a book on makeovers. And so before the interview, I sat down and I said, how are you? And I had known him. I had met him a few times. And I said, this woman, you made over one woman in your book. And bless her heart, she was really homely. But you performed magic, because at the end, she looked like a totally different person. She was really attractive. But boy, at first, she really, really needed help.
Where is this
and I
going?
said, he said, which one? I said, I think in her after picture, she was wearing a red camisole or something. He said, yeah, that was my mother. I know. Oh, a gasp was heard in the studio. It was so embarrassing. I turned beet red. I felt so terrible.
Open mouth, insert foot.
Yeah, it was awful. But he was actually such a sweet guy about it. And he said, but I was adopted. Anyway.
Yikes.
And she actually didn't look that bad in the before picture either.
Now you're just like digging it.
No.
Okay, last question from the elementary school. Henry Steffens asks, who is your celebrity crush? You've got a few.
Oh, you know who my celebrity crush is?
Well, I know who it is.
Yeah, who?
Can I say?
Yeah.
If we're thinking the same thing, it's
Yeah.
Mr. Schuster.
Mr. Schuster is my
Yeah,
celebrity
exactly.
crush. Yes, Mr. Schuster, Matthew Morrison on Glee. I think he is so cute. And plus, he was in South Pacific. He's so talented. He's got an amazing voice, obviously, but he's also an incredible dancer. And I just think he's great.
We actually went to the Glee concert.
Yes, we did.
Yikes.
Yes.
It doesn't get any stranger than that.
No, but it was fun.
It was actually a lot of fun.
I mean, we should
Yeah,
point
yeah.
out that I brought my 14-year-old and her friends,
Of course,
Carrie
yeah.
and her friends, who
Yeah.
were 13 at the time. But I would say, yes, Mr. Schuster is my current crush.
And
Don't we have any
are
good
there
live
any
ones
other
coming
ones?
in?
Yeah, we could check for a couple more live ones, but then I want to ask couple final ones.
Mm-hmm.
Talk amongst yourselves while we look for live questions. Who would you like to see on the show in the next year? How about that?
Oh, gosh. Well, I know I'm very excited. I'm interviewing Clint Eastwood next week, and I just saw his movie, The Hereafter, which apparently was given to Steven Spielberg as a script, and he decided not to do it, and he brought it to Clint Eastwood. And it's all about what happens to you when you die and what you experience, and about sort of 3 different stories. And you know, for someone like me who's endured a lot of loss, my husband and my sister, I'm very interested in kind of what happens to people. And I don't feel like I'm very open-minded about it. I feel I'm a bit closed off, actually, and not very receptive. But I'm fascinated by it, and I thought it was a really very thought-provoking movie, and I really liked it, and I'm very excited. So that's a long way of saying I'm very excited to talk to Clint Eastwood, because I think he's about to turn 80 if he hasn't already, and he's just done remarkable work all through his life. He's a real role model to me about someone who's remained passionate and isn't afraid to take risks in his work. So obviously Clint Eastwood is one of those people. You know, There are a ton of other people, and I was
I think Steve Jobs would be
Oh
really
yeah, yeah. I've
fascinating.
been trying to get an interview with Steve Jobs for years now because he's such a visionary and he's so interesting. And I think, we would have a lot to talk about. He, of course, has been very courageous in his health battles. I think maybe that's one of the reasons he doesn't want to do an interview. He doesn't really want to talk about those things, and I respect that. But he's such a visionary. We had fun interviewing Biz Stone and. It'd be fun to interview the guys behind Google, and Google's supposed to be such a great place to work. I would love to get a tour of their headquarters and find out why people like working there so much. Gosh, there's so many people who I would love to talk to. There are a lot of actors and actresses, people who write books. I've
almost
interviewed
came
Malcolm
close
Gladwell and.
You almost came close to interviewing Harper Lee.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was supposed to go down to Alabama when they had the 50th anniversary of To Kill a Mockingbird, and I was going to have a one-on-one meeting with Nell, is what she's called, and at the last minute, it fell through. I was just crestfallen because, like so many people, that's one of my favorite books in the world. And I watched it recently with my daughters and was so, once again, moved. And Atticus Finch reminds me of my own father. And, I know she's quite reclusive, but I feel like for sort of the archives of American letters, that it would be so nice to have just a conversation with her at some point with someone. It doesn't even have to be with me, although I'd like it to be, just so people can understand sort of the process of writing To Kill a Mockingbird. And it's had such an impact, and it's such an enduring novel that I was very excited about that, but it got canceled, so
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? But I always wanted to interview her. J.D. Salinger, of course, who recently died.
Yeah.
I always thought it would be great to interview him. I love talking to authors because they're so invested in their work and they're so passionate about it. Sometimes you feel like actors are doing a junket because they have to promote a film, and it might have been finished 6 months ago and they're really not that into it, but they feel obligated. But with an author, you feel like they pour their heart and soul into that book. Mm-hmm. And that's why I really, really enjoy interviewing authors.
Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with the audience about this year or?
No, I would like to say how much I appreciate those of you who have enjoyed the web show, and I would love to hear from you more, people you'd like me to talk to, because there are people who interest me, but I'm sure there are a lot of people who you'd like to know more about or learn more about, and I certainly love hearing from my colleagues here at CBS and other people in my life who have ideas. We're interviewing Drake.
Yes.
Yo.
We've got some great shows coming up, actually.
Yeah,
it's going to be a fun fall.
And it's sometimes I don't get to all the Twitter questions. I wish I had more time, but I think I need to be more disciplined about getting to more Twitter questions, because if I ask for them and people take the time to think of them, I need to incorporate them more in the
We've done a
interview.
bunch. We could maybe do a Twitter lightning round or something like that.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes I get carried away with my own line of questioning, and I forget about the Twitter questions, or I actually steal the Twitter questions and pretend they're my own. I don't do it on purpose, but sometimes they're asking the same questions I would have asked. But, just that I really appreciate people's support, people watching the show, and would love to hear more input from folks. And also, appreciate that we have a sponsor, and that's why we're able to do this. And the folks at Dove have been really nice to sponsor this web show as well. And it's been fun. Do you have fun working on it, Tony?
Absolutely, yeah. It's always the best part of my week. Obviously, we both have day jobs, in addition to, but it is a lot of fun. It's fun to see who we're going to have and what you're going to ask and what Twitter questions are going to come in. So I guess I thank everybody too.
And it's nice to have the breathing room to expand something and to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
And to, for me, I can't really act like this normally in my day job. So it's fun for me to have this side of my personality have a place where it can be unleashed.
And on that note, all right, thank you so much, Katie, for talking to us
Well,
today.
thank you so much, Tony, for... Did we get much
more than
much
anything?
traffic on
Yeah,
there?
we
'Cause
did.
I feel
we
like
did.
we didn't answer many live questions.
We did.
Should we do one
did.
more for posterity or not? I feel sort of like...
Jaded News.
Oh, Is this going to
Why
be
are
a
we
really?
going down this road? We'll do one more. Okay, and Jaded News asks, Katie, do you think that the minimum wage in America is a factor in the economy's recovery?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
But we have talked a lot about underemployment.
Yeah, but how would that? But
Well, I
she's
mean, just low income or people who are making,
a lot less than they
lot
would. In
less.
fact, when you factor in the underemployed and I think the people who have stopped looking, it's 17 or 18% of the population, and so. I'm not an economist, but so I don't really know the answer to that question. I'll have to think about it or find out more. Or is she suggesting, or is it's a woman, right? Mm-hmm. That people are going to jobs that don't pay them as much, and that the minimum
in
wage
140 characters, I can't read that far into it.
if the minimum
but-
wage was raised, if the economy would be better, I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, or maybe what it is in other countries. I don't know what the
Yeah.
minimum,
You know what? We'll look
Tweet
into
us-
that.
tweet us more info
You know what?
and we
Maybe
will
we'll
look
find
into
some
it.
more
That's a good idea.
information about it, and we can talk about it either on our next web show or we can write a blog about it.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed it. We'll do more of these throughout the fall. And of course, please stay tuned for all the great episodes of Katie Couric that are coming up. Follow Katie on Twitter because her handle
Oh yeah,
is
I'm having a
Katie
contest
Couric.
with a friend of mine, you guys, for Twitter, and I'm trying to get, I'm trying to double my followers, which are, I think I have about 90.
90-something thousand.
So if you can tell your friends, then that person is going to have to take me to lunch, and hopefully not at the restaurant that serves cockroaches on the side.
Which will remain nameless
Yeah.
for the point of the rest of the show. All right. Well, thank you all so much once again for watching. And stay tuned now for a message from our sponsor, Dove.